All right. We need to make a video because we're getting pretty slim again. And you can see we've got the trailer hooked up, which can only mean one thing: more treasures. And we are going to get started on our adventure right after this. Welcome back. If you haven't seen my videos before, I'm Rusty Oliver Man, and we are going back to get the second round, which I don't know. I think it's going to take 3 trips, but more of those combine parts. It's been several weeks now. The weather was pathetic, you know, after I got the first load, and the old guy said too, he said, I don't want any part of working outside in that miserable freezing below 0 temperatures, which I don't blame him. Plus some of the stuff was buried back in the barns farther, and he was going to, you know, have to move some stuff out of the way so he could get his loader in there and lift it out. And he called the other day and he said, I got it all moved out where we can get to it the next time we can make that happen. Well, now the weather's over 60 degrees, so he said, hey, why don't you come now and get it so we don't have to suffer through, you know, miserable weather. So there is things I would rather probably be working on since the weather's nice, but I see the point in this too. I don't really want to struggle in miserable weather. So we're going to get going. It takes me about an hour to get there, and then it'll probably take a couple hours or so to load or more, but we'll see. Hopefully we can get back before dark so that we can maybe video the rest of these treasures, you know, and then you can see them. So I don't know that he will. I probably won't film while we're there. I gathered he wasn't into the YouTube scene. You know, he knows that I do that, but he wasn't, like he doesn't ever watch because he doesn't do the internet. So I don't know. But anyway, I'll see what footage we can get, but definitely we'll video some of the journey, and yeah, we'll video when we get back. All right, well, despite what the customer service person said, if you watched, well, you probably haven't seen my video yet on that, but I had a little trouble with getting some packages the other day, and they said that they were going to send me a replacement today since they screwed it up. So I'm going to check the mailbox, even though I don't think that they have delivered anything. No, we got a Shoop catalog and a Lifts Today catalog. Yeah, we need that. So no packages though. We'll add that up here to the, you know, safety barrier. Sure. All right. Probably should get some fuel for our journey, but we have to go through a town to get there anyway, so I guess that's what we'll do. So I'll do that, and I'll bring you back somewhere along life's way. Equipment yard, sure. There's the old Great Plains drill that we used to work on. We're trucking along though. It'll take probably another 40 minutes or so to get here. So, I don't know. We'll just see what happens, but we're on the way. So along this stretch of road, we have a throwback to the past. They still have some of the old-timey telephone line poles and stuff with the glass insulators. Just a old relic that never got taken down, I guess. I doubt that any of those wires actually still do something, but maybe they do, and that's why they didn't do away with it. The telephone company is not very much into updating their line, because I had trouble with my landline and they wouldn't fix it hardly. So maybe it comes out of the ground and goes up here for a while and they just left it. I don't know, but it's kind of neat that it's still, you know, somewhat there. A good section right along the railroad here. All right, we're almost there, and I'll throw in a clip. There's a house that has the most inflatable Christmas decorations I have ever seen in one spot. But of course it's the daytime, so they're off. And that gave me an idea, and I texted my family, so I'll throw it in. But for you, I think I'll put some music underneath it to make it more effective. But here you go. Dearest Mother, even though it has been a fortnight since the Battle of Santa Claus Hill, the screams of the fallen still haunt my dreams. Although I shall be okay, I cannot say the same about many of the fallen brothers. Please give my regards to Father and dearest Sarah. Your son, Private Washburn, 1st Regiment, Christmas Army. It's one of those Civil War home letters, you know. That's what that made me think of, seeing all those deflated soldiers. But that is neither here nor there. We will be there shortly. I will say that the roads here are kind of narrow-ish, and they're not real straight, but I've seen a lot worse too, so it's not too bad. It's a lot easier driving on this when it's daytime, so you can see the slight jogs and stuff, and then the concrete sticking up culverts, that kind of thing, you know. That's the dangerous part, because you hook that with your trailer if you don't watch what you're doing. So anyway, we'll be there shortly.
2 hours later.
All right, we're starting back. It's been several hours. That's a nice guy, so it always takes a little bit of visiting and talking, but we got a pretty good load of stuff on there, so we're just gonna settle in and take our time getting home. I see the tires are kind of squatting pretty good, so we don't want to flat. I got my driving Mountain Dew, so I think we're good to go. You know, we can take as much time as we need, is the moral of the story. So, sure. Oh, there's a windmill. That's another thing that I would like to acquire, but I never have yet. I think a windmill would be a nice addition to my pile of stuff. Great-grandpa had a windmill, but I don't know, I'd say it probably finally fell apart or they took it down. I don't know whatever really happened to it. My uncle might know, but I don't think it was there when I was a kid anymore. Maybe part of the tower was there. I don't know. I don't remember. I just know Grandpa said that whenever it got super windy, they'd have to go out and shut it off. Anyway, when it got super windy, they'd have to go out and shut it off so it didn't fly apart, you know. You could only let it blow in a nice gentle breeze, but not in a hurricane style wind. Okay, we only have one strap on this load, so we're gonna just hope for the best. I think we'll be fine, but we're probably not gonna get home before dark, so we're probably not gonna get a video of the load tonight, but it'll be in the end of this video because I'll get it tomorrow in the daylight, and so on and so forth and what have you. Oh, it's a Christmas miracle. They've all risen from the dead. Look at all of those inflatables. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before. Take them out of the box and stake them to the ground and you're done. A few of them didn't make it, but hey, what are you gonna do? Somebody popped his unicorn, but that's okay. Oh, pardon me, boys. Is that the Chattanooga choo-choo? Probably not, but it's heading through here, so I have to sit and wait on it. I haven't had to sit and wait on a train for a good while, so.
Railroad crossing ahead.
Oh, really? Thank you, phone. I didn't know that. I couldn't figure out what that thing was that was going by for some reason, all in a straight line, but thank goodness you were here, telephone. Sure. Well, we made it to a restaurant, so yeah, we might as well get something to eat in town. But look at this load of treasure. We'll scan over it tomorrow in the daylight so you can see it. But there's a little bit of everything on there. And I would say this is, I'd say we're gonna end up with at least 4 trips out of this deal. So anyway, looks like it rode pretty good all the way there, so can't complain so far. Yeah, look there, everybody. You can't see that, but we'll fix that. It's Buddy the dog. Are you happy to see us, Buddy the dog? I'm trying not to fall out and land on top of you, because usually I use the other hand, but that's holding the flashlight, so sure. We made it back, though. And our trailer load of treasures, friends, is there still. So tomorrow, like I said, we'll wrap this video up and we'll take a look at some stuff. More stuff than I thought there was. And there's still more in there, you know. We just got some of the highlights again. So, but there's some cool stuff, because I've been looking for some of this stuff for years and never been able to find it. And now, you know, I could have saved a lot of money had I been able to buy all this like 5 or 10 years ago instead of buying one piece at a time. So anywho, yeah, we'll dive into it in the daylight and I'll show you what I got. Buddy the dog, what are you doing, pal? Huh? Taking it all in. I figured we'd come out here and look at our treasures. Also, it should be noted that I've looked around here. There is absolutely no delivery of the packages that the place said that they were going to deliver today or yesterday, because they screwed it up the first time. So I guess we'll be back on the customer service line complaining about that, but whatever. It is probably 65 degrees right now, at least. Maybe, I don't know. I guess I could look at the phone. It's wonderful. It's gonna get a lot worse though here very shortly. So anywho, let's just take a look, because I'm curious too now. I'm wearing a coat and I don't need one. Oh, it's 69 degrees, so yeah, beautiful. So we're gonna work on a New Holland in a minute, so I can get most of that done today. But at any rate, let's take a look at our treasures. He called me and he said, I got some of the stuff drug out, and he said, this time, he said, you better bring some muscle, because he said, we're moving final drives and transmissions, and he wasn't kidding. So 500 series combine. We've got 2 transmissions, looks like, no, three transmissions out of various machines. They should all be the same, I believe, whether it be a 5, 25, 35, 45, 7300. I think they're all the same. Don't quote me on that. The donkeys must not believe me, because they're making a lot of racket now. But I've had several of them out and I haven't noticed any differences in them. The only difference that I could guess would be like on your, okay, if you get like a 7600 or the 88s, 8900s, the output shafts are different size. I know that, and thus the final drives are too. But so we got 1, 2, 3 final drives, I think, for these. So 3 transmissions and 3 final drives, unless there was a 4th one on here. It's hard to say because it's so much stuff piled on here and it's all kind of rearranged itself on the trip. But it looks like 3 final drives. We've got 2 of the clutch side of the variable speed, and that's off of the smaller ones like the 525. The 540, my 545 is different, so I don't know if they all were different or what, but mine has more springs out here on that bigger one, and I think that pulley's bigger in diameter, but don't quote me on that. Then we have, let's see, what else? So much wonderful stuff. We have the old style hydraulic variable speed for the back side that actually, this is the part that does your changing, and so I'm glad I got a spare one of these now, because that's what my 545 has. But this little hydraulic piston is what changes that width of that pulley, which then makes the belt ride up or down, which then pulls against that spring and makes it go in or out, you know, and that changes your speed, because that clutch housing is what bolts to here, to your transmission, and then your drive belt goes back, and your long belt comes down from the motor onto there. So that's beautiful. There we've got a tailpiece housing, which is probably off the little 6-cylinder like on the 525, I would imagine. And then there's the plate for it and the shaft that bolts to the flywheel, which I know that's off the smaller one, because the V8 and the diesel, I believe, are the same, but they're different than this slightly. I don't know. I've messed with them enough that I'm pretty sure that the V8 and the diesel was the same. So if you've got one and you want to put a Perkins in it, whatever, I think you can reuse your tailpiece. You can at least reuse that part, and the part number was the same for the actual shaft that bolts to the flywheel, but I'm not saying that this piece here wouldn't be different, because you might have a different bolt pattern on the Perkins. I don't know. Not sure about that. I've never done a swap, but I've done enough changing of pieces to know that a lot of it's the same. What else do we have in the goodie pile? Well, there's a couple hydraulic tanks. That's what, of course, you never see that. It sits in your cab underneath your instrument cluster. Back in the corner is where you fill the hydraulic oil, and there's your tank. So a couple of those. Some of this stuff you may never need, but hey, why scrap it? Because you might need it. You never know. We have some miscellany, a starter off of the 6-cylinder, I believe, a couple of V8 manifolds. The other one's on there somewhere. I don't know where. Actually, there's a third clutch housing piece minus the pulley part down in there. Then we have, looks like there's a couple steering cylinders there, and then there's another one somewhere, and a hydraulic pump. The hydraulic pump is just belt driven, consequently. Here's some pulleys and whatever. There's some shields. Some are better than others. That's a really kind of above average one there. This one, a bolt-on style. And we'll talk about some of that later. There's all kinds of miscellaneous rods, and there's like the clutch handle that starts the machine drive. You pull back over center, one of those pulleys and handle. There's a that might be another steering cylinder too. No, that could be that's a real lift cylinder, is what that is, off of a grain table. And then yeah, we've got some corn head clutches for the old style 544, 534, 541. I don't remember all the numbers. I think they made some, then they updated the numbers. Mine is a 544, and this is the old style clutches, so that's good. I think there's 3 of those, so that's dandy. You will see shortly, well, there's 4 units for the old style corn head, like on my 544, which is wonderful, because I've been looking for stuff like that for years, because I had some. Mine are not that great. I mean, they are wore slap out, some of them. And it may be the kind of thing where I swap a whole unit for one to the other. I know I'm missing a point. But then, see, the sad part about this is, several years ago, I found a bunch of parts and ordered one at a time, different things I thought I needed. And here I could have had it all for, you know, super cheap, everything I needed. But whatever, can't undo that. I've got some new old stock stuff too. So we'll put that on the combine probably, and then take off what we need off of here. But complete row units are dandy to have, because where are you going to find parts like that? I had even trouble finding the complete chains, if you recall. I don't know if we did a video on that way back when, but I actually built a chain out of repair links, and that's what's on there now. So it does have 2 chains on it again, but you know what I'm saying. And these may not be perfect either, but they're better than no chain at all, because you see they are under spring tension to keep them tight. And as your pins get wore, then you run out of adjustment, and there's a lot of slop and whatnot. But anyway, what I was getting at before I started my whole going down the rabbit hole of sadness there, the early style corn heads did not use gearboxes. Everything was open gear. So take a look at that little friend there. And there was a whole, mine has a whole bank, yeah, there we go, a whole bank of grease fittings over there. But the thing is, you have to be self-aware enough to know that you're actually getting grease where it needs to go, and that the hose didn't bust and it's not getting grease in there, or you ain't gonna get stuff where it needs to go. But I mean, take a look at that old open gear drive in mud and grease and corn stalks and everything. So in the later heads, they went to enclosed gearboxes, but then you had to be smart enough to fill them with oil, you know, or you'd be in the same boat. But anyway, big cast open gears, everything. There's where your chain goes from your clutch to drive it. Little idler to keep it tight. I don't know, we ran that for years and never had a lick of trouble with it until what caused my trouble the last time I ran it was super duper muddy year, and it was probably about like now. It was probably around Christmas time or maybe slightly before, I think, and it was super muddy, and I was trying desperately to get it out. Well, I hit a dip or something, we're in the mud pulling through, and before I knew it, the point had caught the ground and it just folded under. Well, when it folded under, it ripped a chain off, and then that started my sadness on that. So anyway, I finished with 3 rows, and of course it was one of the ones in the middle, so I actually finished with 2 rows because yeah, so whatever. So now there's parts. That's the moral of my story. And there's one that's upside down, so you can kind of see more of how it actually looks. Unfortunately, he said I was about sick when I took those up out of the ground, because he said I realized they went down into the ground. He had them up on like blocks and stuff, but the corners of some went down into the dirt a little bit. So I don't know. We'll clean them off, and like I did with some of those other parts, I just hosed them down with zip so they could sit there and be somewhat protected. So we may do that with these too. Not that I'll ever use them, but I might use parts off of them. And one of these days, when we get hot and heavy into combine repair and playing, we will see if we want to put the best stuff we got onto what we're, you know, actively using, versus just waiting for something to fail and replacing it. But whatever. There's your pulleys underneath the grain tank that they're bolted up under there, and they run with your unloader drive and stuff. There's some more pulleys that they hang under the grain tank. I think they're on the opposite side, and they run straw walkers, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember right now off the top of my head. I thought the big one runs the straw walkers. This one goes up the side of the machine, I'm pretty sure, on the side of the grain tanks, and runs the cross auger. There's an elevator, a clean grain elevator out of a 7300. Here is an elevator. This is probably the, is this a clean grain or is this a return elevator? No, this is this is the elevator that takes the clean grain up to and dumps it in the grain tank off of a 545, he said. It's slightly wider than these other 2 return elevators. And then that's super good, because I'm pretty sure mine has a patch on it. We'll have to investigate that. So that we might be able to use right away with minimal effort, taking off and swapping. The bottom one is another return elevator off of like a smaller 7300, or probably, I think the 525 is probably the same on that. Basically what it does is, as your stuff shakes through the combine and falls down, there's 2 cross augers at the bottom. The front one is for re-threshing, and when it falls into that, it comes up this auger to the front of the machine, and it dumps it back into the cylinder, and it goes again, runs through the machine to get more clean. If it makes it all the way to the back, then it falls through to the other elevator. It goes up to the top and into the grain tank, because it's done through the process. So those are both things that you may never use, but if you need them, there they are, because who knows? I know there'll be a time when I'll probably have to take these off of the machines to work on a bearing behind it or something, and you know, maybe it'll self-destruct, or maybe you'll find it's rusty and no good and you want to change it and whatever. I will say that every one of these I own, I have always had to I've cut this door or this panel out here and made a hinge door. This is actually, right now we're looking at it upside down. This normally hangs down, and trash will settle in here and it'll start to rot out really bad, even back around here. So this is the lowest point really. So if you cut that and make it a door, and then you're smart enough to remember to open it, not saying that I am either, but if you remember to open it, then you can let all that trash out of there and it won't hold moisture and keep rotting this away. I've modified all the ones I use quite heavily for stuff like that would make them easier to use or service. And that was one of the things, adding more clean out doors everywhere. We have, all right, what else do we have on this pile? We have some various pieces of sheet metal. Everything was just in the barn kind of all over, so it's gotten moved several times over its life, I think. So it wasn't like organized by what it came off of or whatever, and it definitely didn't get organized putting it on the trailer. So it is, hey, there's a fourth one of those corn head clutches, so that's cool. There's one now. I've got one for each row. We've got a whole box of pulleys and stuff, and more sprockets, like the bolt-on sprockets for the speed changes. I've got quite a few of those, but it's always good to have more because, you know, other than the one that you normally change to change speeds, there's another one behind that the chain hooks to. So that one, I believe, like on most of mine, is set up with the 45 tooth. That was the, I guess, generic, or the basically what you had for, it would work for most situations. And it's a real pain on the one I got, because you can't change it unless you pull off the return elevator off the side of the machine, because mine has the setup on it for the straw chopper drive, and there's two pulleys that, and I don't know really how, I have to look at how, I've never had that off of there to see how it was made, but it's like a shaft extension or something, or maybe they slid a hub over it, and then it has bolts to have it's a big double groove V pulley that would run back to run your straw chopper. So anyway, that is what it is. But you can see there's some more of those sprockets down there, and bearing holders. That's good, because I have broken those before. We had a bearing go out, and then it broke the holder once on the cylinder. Although Grandpa kept going until the machine wouldn't run anymore and couldn't figure out what was wrong. And when I got out there to the field, it had started sawing through the side of the machine. So yeah, can't just keep driving when it starts acting funny. But anyway, a generator, probably off of a 525. The little spinner thing, I'm kind of pumped about that, because my 525 doesn't have anything, but that could go right on there. Just a couple 3 rubber snakes flapping around, you know, to spread your trash out. So that should be set up right exactly for that, because if you had it for the chopper, you had to replace the panels under the tail piece, and it was, instead of just being a taper thing up, it was like it had a notch out of it for the chopper to sit in, and this one doesn't have that. And also, my pal brought me a pair of those 525 shields. Remember, they were leaning up against the fence one day here, so I have another set that should go with that type of thing too. So whenever we get to messing with that 525, we'll pick out the best of everything and slap that on there, you know. But if we do wheat, we probably don't want to run the spinner, because you'd want it to be windrowed. But if you got wheat and it's going to get wet, then I would think you probably would want it, and then go hay rake it later and then bale it. But whatever. We got some springs on here, various. That should be like a that's probably the auger tension spring on a 545, because the 545, instead of having a front fold auger, they have a back fold auger that is super duper heavy. I am telling you, friends, you better have some lead in your pants when you try to flip that over. I mean, we've done it for years, but the geometry of it, those springs are supposed to help you like cushion a little bit, but they don't really help you with the folding out. You got to stand on the best way I found is you got to stand on the ground and the rod's long enough, and you got to kind of just give it a running pull backwards, and then when it gets you up about like this, you got to strong arm it and don't let it fall back down, and get it to go over center, and then you can latch it. It's got a latch instead of just a bolt like the smaller ones. But no, there's been times if you don't make it quite and it starts to fall back the other way, it is heavy, and you gotta slow it down, because if you don't, it'll tear stuff up as it slams into the side of the machine. That's what the springs are supposed to stop. The longer auger is nice because you can get it into anything. You could get it into a semi if you wanted, whereas these little ones with the short front fold auger, you can't really get into, you know, a big grain cart or a semi even. So you'd have to put it in little wagons and then auger it into something bigger. I think the 7300 would probably go, it would probably auger it into that red truck I've got, but you'd be right up on the truck because the auger is short. But I don't know, we'll figure that out someday, but not today. We got an exhaust pipe off of something. I don't know that that's got a ton of value, but you never know. I mean, there may come a time when something rots out and I can use that flange and make one better. I don't know. A couple of head, not really lift springs, but kind of cushion springs. They go around the cylinders that lift the head, and then there's some stop pieces. I remember seeing them. I don't know if it was on this load or it might have been on the load that we already unloaded the other day, but there's little collars that those ride against that sit on there, and then they, I don't know, they're under there. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, so basically some people are going to be like, who cares, this is just a pile of scrap iron, but I don't think so. This is pretty valuable stuff, quite honestly, because if you went looking for it, you couldn't hardly find it if you wanted it. I know, because I tried and I couldn't. So now I've got it, and that's going to really make a big impact on playing with some of these old combines again, you know. I was burned out of having to fix them and not being able to find parts, and then, you know, struggle the whole time. And they were getting, like, I know some of that corn head I've got is really rickety. There's a lot of stuff that's got slop in it. So we got enough stuff now that we might be able to really make something if we have time. That's the problem now. We're gonna have to make us some time. But yeah, I mean, there's just all kinds of stuff here I see that, yeah, you're not gonna use all of it, but you're gonna use some of it. Yeah, see, this is that long rod that does the shaking. I've broken that piece before, and believe it or not, Agco still made it, and I was able to get a couple new ones. But there's a rod on the side that drives off of that up and down, and that's eccentric, and then that's what makes it all shake. But anywho's, I'm tickled with this load, but now it's like we talked about, or we're putting it on there. It's not as much fun when you got to unload it, because you load it on there and then you got to unload it pretty well by hand, every piece. So we got to make us some room and start stacking and put it up away. I didn't do a very good job with the last load. I just threw some pallets in there and started stacking it on there, but we need to get our wall cleaned up and try to hang some of it up, maybe some of the little stuff, and then you know, stack accordingly. Heavy stuff on bottom, light stuff up top. Take off some stuff that we can use immediately and put it with the combine, so that all we got to do is swap that out one day and make it happen. But yeah, I mean, it's very definite that there's going to be 2 more loads. The next load is probably going to have engines on it, and because there's a 545 engine and a 525 engine, all on the skid complete. There is another radiator nose for a 525. There is, I think, a radiator, well, I don't know about that, if there's a radiator sitting there or not. There's a bunch of straw walkers. That's going to be a load. There's a bunch of tires, wheels and tires. So the next load's probably going to be this trailer with engines and tires. And the last load might end up being livestock trailer straw walkers, glass out of the cab, anything like sheet metal-y stuff that would crush easy. That's probably going to be the last load in the livestock trailer, because you can just load it in however, and then it won't fall out, or you don't have to worry about tying down for the most part. So that's the plan. But definitely a wonderful haul. Okay, donkey, sure. Anyway, they're still reproducing, I guess, so they're excited. But anyway, my point is, some people see this and they think this is just junk, but it's not. I mean, this is pretty valuable stuff for the right person, and I'm the right person because I've got these and I need them. So, you know what I'm saying. I can keep them going for a while. I need to find a 535 now, so then I'd have all three of those series, and then I've got a red and a green 7300, and then we'd have, you know, pretty well the variations of the 500 series combines that there were, and then we could move on to another series like 7600, 7800. Like, we really need more combines sitting around. This guy's got an 8900 he's been working on me to buy, and it's really super duper nice. So I don't know, maybe I'll own an 8900. I don't know. The biggest problem there would be to find somebody to haul it, because I am not driving a combine that has sat for years, several years in the shed, and just immediately taking it out on the highway and driving it, you know, 50 miles home. That ain't happening. So I will, plus I'm a believer that you're wearing out your machine unnecessarily with road travel and something like that. So I would have it hauled, but then also it comes with a package deal, an 8800 that is in really rough shape and probably doesn't run. So, I mean, it could probably has the potential to run, but I don't know how many parts he's robbed off of it, if it's even capable of propelling itself or not. I know it's missing the axle steering cylinder, because he said they took it off and used it on a log splitter or something to flip up the logs onto the table or something. And those are getting hard to find, those axle steering cylinders for those, you know, 88, 87, 86, probably 89's the same. We've had a lot of trouble. Cousin's had some fail, and he took the last one I had, so I don't have any extras of that stuff. So anywho's, I don't know if we'll buy that or not, but we'll wait till 2026 to worry about that kind of thing, you know. We got to get this over with first. And I don't know. I don't really want to buy a lot of stuff this next year if possible. I'd like to focus on playing with the stuff I got and getting it put together, because I just keep hauling in more parts and then never getting anything accomplished. But at the same rate, I'm a believer in you got to buy it when it's available, because some of the stuff like I'm getting offered, it's either you buy it or it's going right to the scrapyard. So you can't get it back from the scrapyard, you know. And a lot of times that's foolishness. I wish people would just calm down, and, you know, if they'd advertise in the right place, they could find somebody who would buy, and then also sell it for a reasonable price. Don't ask a ridiculous price and then get mad when nobody will buy it, and then say, well, I'm just going to scrap it then. Well, if you're going to scrap it and take scrap price, why won't you sell it to somebody else at scrap price or just above, and then you don't have the fuel expense of hauling it away? Very simple. I mean, I don't understand some people when they do that, and then they complain and they say, well, the store doesn't give you a discount, you know. Well, I don't know that they're doing it right either, but on this kind of stuff, I think that's foolishness. I mean, why would you get nothing when you could have something? I mean, if somebody's going to offer you more than scrap price for it, maybe you should take it and not worry about hauling it away then, instead of just junking it because you're mad you can't get your price that's 4 times what it's worth. But that's a whole different rabbit hole we could go down, and everybody will have a different opinion on that. So let's just not even go there, and we'll just move on. Let's just be happy about what we accomplished here. And I will work in the next days, I guess, trying to unload this somewhere and getting it sorted through and whatever. But anyway, this was a good haul, and there will be more. So I'll show you stuff when we get more. For now, we're going to leave this video here. So as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. After watching what you just saw, do you feel like your IQ has dropped lower than your credit score? Well, there's no reason that both of us should be miserable, so go ahead and hit that thumbs up and leave a comment. That stuff costs you nothing, and it really helps me out. Your banker may not approve, but I know mine will. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.